Dun, dun, dun. Hello, everyone in the multiverse and beyond. This is your friend forever, Evan Lefavor, with a brand new review for you. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, that's right. Because it is December, and it is the moment we've all been waiting for. Star Wars, The Last Jedi, is here. That's right, Star Wars, The Last Jedi has been released, and it is now time for me to tell you this special message. Go see The Last Jedi. What are you waiting for? If you have not seen this movie yet, what are you waiting for? Do you understand that this is one of the greatest Star Wars movies ever made? And it is out now, right now, for you to see. And there are so many shocking moments in this movie. But what I am going to provide you with right now is a spoiler-free review of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Well, at least the first part of this video is going to be spoiler-free. But then later on in the video, we are going to be delving into spoiler territory. All right? So if you don't want anything for the movie spoiled for you, if you have not seen The Last Jedi yet, I beg you, please, pretty please with sugar on top, do not watch the spoilers section of this video until after you have seen the movie. But I'm telling you now, that's where all the fun is. In the spoilers section of this video, I'm going to get to tell you everything I thought about the movie and each character in the movie and what happens in the movie and what might happen after the movie. So if you want my detailed review, check out the spoilers section after you have seen The Last Jedi. So if you don't want any spoilers at all, which you shouldn't, you want to know as least about this movie as possible going into it, because there are so many great surprises you do not want to have spoiled for you in any way. So if you want to pause the video now and go see The Last Jedi, because I'll tell you right now something that's spoiler-free. All right, here's my spoiler-free review. This movie, The Last Jedi, it made me cry over 20 times while watching this movie for the first time. I cried, not because the movie was sad, but I was crying tears of joy and ecstasy because the movie was so cool. The Last Jedi is so cool that it moved me to tears because of how cool it is. All right? And I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan, and the Star Wars series means a lot to me, and I personally relate to it, okay? So it moved me, but it can move you too, which is why you should see this movie as soon as possible while it is still in theaters with a packed audience, because I will tell you, there is nothing like seeing The Last Jedi with a packed audience. And every time one of those jaw-dropping surprises happens in this movie, you might have not have been the type of person in the past to make noise at a movie. All right? You might have never cheered out loud before in a movie while watching a movie, or said yeah, or whistled or screamed at what you were seeing. But that might all change when you go see The Last Jedi with a packed crowd. You will find yourself yelling and screaming and cheering throughout this film multiple times, okay? And we are talking about a satisfying movie, okay? The Last Jedi. What did I think of this film? All right. I went and saw this movie twice. Okay. I went and saw this movie opening night And I was going to do the review after only seeing it once. But then I decided, no, I want to make a well-informed video and a well-informed review so that I know that my opinion on this movie is accurate. So in order to do that, I had to see it again. All right. So if you are watching this review and you've already seen The Last Jedi once, and maybe you're a bit conflicted as to whether or not you liked the movie or not, I implore you, go see The Last Jedi a second time, because it is even better the second time. All right, I didn't know. I put it to the test. I said, all right, when I first saw the Last Jedi, I thought, I had a different opinion of it. But when I saw it the second time, I loved the movie even more. I fell in love with the movie because the first time you see it, a lot of stuff happens so fast and it's hard to process some of it. And so when you get to see it a second time, you really get to pick up on things you might have missed the first time around. So yeah, you definitely want to go see The Last Jedi a second time if you've already seen it once. But if you haven't even seen it once, what are you waiting for? The Last Jedi is without a doubt one of the best Star Wars movies ever made, the best Star Wars movie ever made since Return of the Jedi. That's right, this movie is better than the prequels, and this movie is better than The Force Awakens. Way better. All right? I thought that when I saw The Force Awakens, I thought to myself, I said, you know what? Every time Han Solo came on screen, the first time I saw The Force Awakens and Han Solo came on screen for the first time, or Princess Leia came on screen for the first time, or Luke Skywalker came on screen for the first time, I cried tears of joy. All right? And I thought, after seeing The Force Awakens, that there's no way they're going to be able to top that. To move me, using nostalgia to move me to tears. But The Last Jedi succeeded. It proved me wrong, because The Last Jedi moved me to tears even more by how nostalgic and cool it was, and how many homages there are, and how many cool things happen in this movie. This movie is a laundry list of cool things that happen. Okay? And it is entertaining from start to finish. So I would tell you more about the movie, but I'm just here to give you my spoiler-free review, which means I'm not going to tell you about anything that happens in the movie. I'm just giving you my review of the movie. And my review is Rian Johnson did a tremendous job. It can be argued that he didn't do as good a job with the legacy characters as J.J. Abrams did in The Force Awakens. I've heard a lot of people say, J.J. Abrams did Han Solo and Leia better than Rian Johnson did Luke and Leia. But I would disagree. All right? I'm a pretty big fan of The Last Jedi, and I think that Rian Johnson did a hell of a job. Okay, especially after seeing the movie a second time. It's a pretty fucking brilliant Star Wars movie, and it's got a cool message to it. And you definitely want to see this with a packed audience of Star Wars fans, because there's nothing quite like it. So go out there, see The Last Jedi. You will not regret it. There are people that hate this movie, and if you want to discuss that with me, go see the movie and then come back and watch the following segments in the spoiler section, because we are going to be breaking down what happens in the movie. All right? When we go into the spoiler section, I'm going to break down everything that happens in the movie, And I'm going to go character by character and talk about them and what happens in this movie and what I thought about the character and the events of the film. And it's going to be a lot of fun for Star Wars fans. But go see the movie first before we enter spoiler territory, okay? So I'm going to give you a second. If you haven't seen the film, go see the film. Go see the film. I'm going to take a drink, and then we're going to start the spoiler section. Cheers. Are you ready for the spoilers? The Last Jedi spoilers? I warn you now, we are about to talk about everything that happens in Star Wars The Last Jedi. And if you have not seen this movie yet, turn away now. I implore you. Go see The Last Jedi and then come back. Promise me you will come back and see this. And if you've already seen it, stay tuned, because we are entering the spoiler section. Dun, 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 dun. All right. So what happens? Now I can give you my real review here in the spoilers section. Let's take the gloves off. Let's get deep. Let's talk about the nitty gritty of that Star Wars titty. Oh yeah, because a fine titty it is. The Last Jedi. Okay, so when I first saw The Last Jedi, like I said, a lot of things hit you. They blind you. They hit you where you least expect it, right? And the cool part is, you know, seeing it a second time makes it all the better, because, like I said, there's a lot of things you miss. The first time I saw The Last Jedi, I was a bit disappointed. I thought that some of the writing wasn't that great, but it wasn't. I was wrong. When I saw the movie a second time with a greater understanding of the whole plot and everything, I was able to appreciate the brilliance of the writing in The Last Jedi. So I think a lot of people are seeing Star Wars The Last Jedi and they're conflicted. They don't know whether they like it or not, and there's things that they disagree with, and I think it's just that they don't understand it fully, because so many things happen in this movie that it takes a lot of time to process it all. Okay? It takes you so much time. I mean, and things happen so fast. Things in this movie, you know, just fly by in the blink of an eye, and important shit happens. So what happens in The Last Jedi? What happens? Well, let's just do a quick rundown of the plot of The Last Jedi, shall we? In The Last Jedi, the Resistance, what is left of the Resistance, is being tailed throughout outer space by the First Order. And the First Order is getting ready to attack General Leia and the remaining members of the Resistance. And so the plot of Star Wars The Last Jedi, it involves General Leia and the remaining Resistance members attempting to escape the First Order. But the First Order forces have found a way to track them through hyperspace. So usually they could jump to hyperspace and the First Order would not be able to track which location they went to. But the First Order created new technology that allows them to track the Resistance spaceships through hyperspace. So the movie begins with Poe Dameron. Poe Dameron from Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, makes his return. And oh boy, does he get a chance to shine in this movie. If you are a fan of Poe from Force Awakens, which any Star Wars fan should be a fan of Poe, because he's a good character. He is the best pilot in the galaxy, in any galaxy. So you got to give him credit. And he gets a lot of time to shine, and his character evolves in The Force Awakens. But we'll talk about that later when we delve into each character and what happens in this movie. But it's not just about that. But there's, like I said, they have a tracking device so they can't escape through using hyper jumping through hyperspace like they used to be able to by going through light speed travel. So Finn, remember Finn from Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, the guy who was the stormtrooper, right? Well, I don't want to go through all the events of the movie right now, but let's just say there's some new characters introduced in The Last Jedi. There are new characters. And the first time I watched the movie, it was hard for me to warm up to these new characters. And that is because I hadn't seen the whole movie yet. And by the end of The Last Jedi, every new character that is introduced in this film proves themselves worthy of being a new character in a Star Wars movie. But the first time you see this film and that you haven't seen them prove themselves yet, your first impressions of them can be, this character, I'm not really feeling this character. But then the second time you go back and see the movie, you will appreciate these characters, all right? Like, you might not like Rose, the new character Rose. You might not like her right away because you don't understand the story good enough, about that her sister was in that first scene, that first battle scene. Her sister died. Her sister was the girl who dropped the bombs to blow up the First Order ship. All right. And so her sister sacrificed herself. So, and at the end of the movie, she proves herself to be a valuable character in this saga. But the first time you see the character of Rose, you're like, oh, they're just shoehorning this character into the plot. And it's kind of like, it comes off as flimsy writing that they're shoehorning this character into the plot. But the second time you see it, after you have respect for that character, after that character has proven themselves and grown on you, the second time you see the movie, you're like, wow, okay, I really do like this character now. All right. So, and the same goes for Holdo, who takes over for General Leia. All right. General Leia Organa. All right. We'll get into the moments, but you've seen the movie. If you're watching this, you've seen The Last Jedi already. So let's just get into the spoiler talk. Let's not just go over the events of the movie. Let's delve in and talk about these characters like Snoke. Okay. So, going into, before I had seen Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, I was not hyped on Snoke. I was curious about Snoke. I was like, all right, I want to know who Snoke is. I want to know where he came from, how he seduced Kylo Ren. I wanted answers, right? That's what I wanted out of Snoke in The Last Jedi. But when I actually saw The Last Jedi, I was surprised to find out that Snoke was a badass character and that they were showing a lot more of Snoke than I thought they would. And so I was happy with who Snoke was in The Last Jedi, because he was a menacing villain and I wanted to see more of him, which totally shocked me the first time I watched this movie and I see what happens to Snoke. All right. When Kylo Ren ignites that lightsaber and takes out Snoke, I was shocked that they would kill off Snoke in the second movie. And I was disappointed. I was disappointed because I wanted to know, who is Snoke? And how did he seduce Kylo Ren? You know, we hear in the movie, yeah, Snoke seduced Kylo Ren, but how? What the fuck happened? How did he do it? All right. And we don't get that in this movie. We don't get any of Kylo, you know, we get a few explanations of what Snoke has done, but, you know, I would have liked to see more. Hopefully we will see some flashbacks in episode 9 for Snoke, that features Snoke, that maybe Kylo Ren doing a flashback and explaining how Snoke seduced him in the first place and how he did it. Because I think that that's what needs to happen, because that just needs to happen, you know. And it shocked me that Snoke was killed in this movie, something I thought was going to happen in episode 9 for sure. Which brings me to one of my complaints of episode 8. That was initially a complaint, but now I like it. When I first saw Last Jedi, I was a bit disappointed because the movie did not make me excited to see episode 9 at all. As a matter of fact, episode 8 felt like the conclusion to the entire Star Wars saga. So episode 8, The Last Jedi, not only is it a perfect sequel to The Force Awakens, but it is also, it feels like a great closing chapter to the entire Star Wars saga. Okay? So when you get done watching The Last Jedi, you feel a sense of completion. You feel like the story and events set up in episode 7 get resolved pretty much in episode 8. I mean, there are still some lingering things, like the fact that the Resistance is now just a few members. There's only a few members of the Resistance, a handful of people that survived, and they're all aboard the Millennium Falcon. So it's going to be interesting. We will see in episode 9. See, episode 8 picked up right where episode 7 left off, basically. All right. But I think episode 9, I think some time is going to progress since episode 8. I don't think episode 9 is going to start out right after episode 8 ended, but it could. You know, we don't know. We don't know at this point what J.J. Abrams is going to do with episode 9, but I wish him the best of luck in coming up with a satisfying conclusion to this saga. But in order to do that, I think they're going to have to do some flashback scenes explaining who Snoke was. And I think it will add a lot to the character of Kylo Ren. But speaking of characters, look at this guy. Who knew this guy was going to show up in the movie? Not me. I predicted it in my live trailer reaction for the Last Jedi trailer. I predicted, what if Yoda's in this movie? And I was like, it would be amazing if Yoda was in this movie. And I lost my shit in the theater when I saw that motherfucking Yoda was returning. When I saw the back of his head and his ears pop up, and so good. So good. Yoda's appearance in this movie is great. The only complaint I have with Yoda is that the first time you see him in this movie, he looks computer generated and he looks kind of cartoonish. But then for some reason, every shot he's in after that first little shot you see him in, he looks so much better. And it looks like a puppet. It looks like the puppet from Return of the Jedi, just a little fatter. It looks like Yoda's been eating a lot in the afterlife, because his Force Ghost is kind of chubbier than he looks here. But hell yeah, Yoda was great. He was still, and he was trolling Luke again. He was trolling Luke because Yoda shows up while Luke is going. Luke is all fired up because he's going to end the Jedi Order by destroying the ancient Jedi books. He's going to burn them. And then he gets up to the tree and Luke's like, oh, I just can't do it. And then Yoda comes out of nowhere and pulls lightning. He summons lightning down from the fucking clouds and it strikes the tree and lights it on fire. All right. And Luke thinks that the Jedi books are burning. And he's like, no, the books. And Yoda's just cracking up because he knows that Rey already took the books, that the books weren't even fucking in there because Rey stole them. Only Yoda knew that. Luke didn't. And Luke thought the books were destroyed and Yoda's just sitting there just laughing his ass off. I loved it. I loved seeing Yoda interact with Mark Hamill again. Fucking brilliant, brilliant stuff. It's so good to see the return of prequel Yoda. You know, we're so used to Yoda being in the prequel movies, episode 1, 2, and 3. But that was a different Yoda, you know. He was more serious back then. But the Yoda that we know from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi was, you know, he had more of a sense of humor. He wasn't so serious. And it was good to see that Yoda on screen yet again. So, big highlight of the movie. Made me cry tears of joy seeing my boy Yoda back on the motherfucking screen. So cool. So fucking cool. So what about Rey? What about Rey? Well, you see, one of my complaints about The Last Jedi is that in The Force Awakens, both Rey and Kylo Ren were made out to be ultimate badasses of the Force. I mean, in The Force Awakens, you get to see Kylo Ren stop a laser bolt in midair using the Force from hitting him, and he just freezes it in place, among other things that he can do using the Force. And in The Force Awakens, you find out that Daisy Ridley is this powerful Force user, that she's super powerful with the Force. But in The Last Jedi, that is not exemplified. All right? We never get to see Daisy Ridley really show off being a badass with the Force. We never really get to see Kylo Ren show off that he's a badass with the Force. We never get to see that. So I feel like they dulled Rey's character down a bit. I thought like The Force Awakens made Rey to be this new Anakin, this ultimate badass, one of the most powerful Jedis to ever live. And The Last Jedi just didn't portray her in that way anymore. So she's still Rey. I do like the way she was portrayed in the movie. I just think I would have liked to have seen her show off her abilities more. Like, we only get to see her use the Force a few times. And it would have been a lot better to see her get a little bit more training from Luke Skywalker. But we'll see. Hopefully, she'll get some training from Luke Skywalker in Episode 9. Hopefully, he will return to Episode 9 to train her. But I liked what was happening. At first, I was against what they did with Kylo Ren and Rey having this psychic connection where they telepathically communicate and they can see each other and they can touch each other and they can see each other's future. And like, at first I was that whole thing rubbed me the wrong way for multiple reasons. First of all, because it's something completely new we've never really seen in a Star Wars movie before. We've never seen that happen, so it's something new. And also, it made Star Wars kind of feel like Twilight. Like they're trying to do some Twilight shit where it's like, I hope they're not teasing a potential romance between Rey and Kylo Ren on some Twilight level bullshit, because I think that would be kind of fucked up. But you never know. You never know what they're hinting at, because Rey could always turn out to be Luke Skywalker's daughter. All right. In The Last Jedi, there's a scene where on Ahch-To, Rey jumps down this pit and she falls in this water and she gets out of the water and there's like this mirror and she touches it and all of a sudden there's all these infinite reflections of her and they all copy exactly what she does. And then there's another moment I thought was stuck out like a sore thumb, is there's a voiceover of Rey in past tense saying, and then I felt like this, and then this, and then, but I knew there was an end to all the things. It was like a monologue you'd read out of a book. Like all of a sudden a voiceover of Rey saying that shit like it's past tense. And it felt so weird. It disrupted the narrative structure of a traditional Star Wars movie by having some kind of a narration like that. It just felt really out of place. But to make a long story short, there's this scene where she asks the mirror, "Who are my parents?" And when she said that shit, you see these figures start coming up to the mirror like the mirror is going to show you who her parents are. And I thought they were really going to do it. And my heart started pumping up so fast when I first saw that. Like, holy shit, I'm about to find out who the fuck Rey's parents really are. And then, of course, they show her face. Like, she's her own parent. Which means she could be a child of the Force. Like Anakin. But we don't know yet. She could also be Luke's daughter or Obi-Wan's daughter or granddaughter or some kind of crazy shit. We don't know. But Kylo Ren does claim to know who Rey's parents are. And he says, oh, your parents were nobody. And you're a nobody. And blah, blah, blah. You don't come from anything. So either we find out in episode 9 that Kylo Ren was lying about who Rey's parents really are, that Kylo Ren knows that, hey, Rey is Luke's daughter, but he's not going to tell Rey unless she doesn't know yet. So he lies to her and says that she's a nobody. Either that's the way it's going to go, or Rey really doesn't have any lineage to the Skywalkers, and she just happens to be one of the most gifted Force users ever. And they're trying to make a point that it's not about your genetics going backward that determine who you really are. That you can transcend your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and actually excel beyond what they achieved or whatever, That it doesn't need to be hereditary. to be a powerful Jedi. So maybe that's what they're hinting at, or Kylo Ren was lying. But at the end of the Star Wars The Last Jedi, there is a little boy, the stable boy, and he uses the Force to grab his broom to sweep up the stable with. So I think they're leaning toward a reality, or talking about Star Wars, where they're trying to make a point that, it's not about who came before you. You don't have to have a special bloodline to start a special bloodline. So, speaking of the bloodline, though, here's Kylo Ren. And we find out in the movie that Snoke has used the Force, the dark side of the Force, to link Kylo Ren's mind with Rey's mind, so that Rey could work as a double agent against Kylo Ren to make sure if Kylo Ren was loyal to Snoke or not. So it's interesting. When I was shocked when Kylo Ren turned the lightsaber on with the Force and killed Snoke. When it first happened, I was in shock that it happened. When I saw the movie the second time, you can just hear what Snoke is saying before he's killed. He's like, I can see it now. You're about to turn the lightsaber on and kill your real enemy. And everything Snoke says is true. And then Kylo Ren does turn the lightsaber on, but it's not to strike down Rey. It's to strike down Snoke. So, while I was disappointed they killed off Snoke the first time I saw the movie, I actually appreciated how they did it the second time I saw the movie. So definitely go out and see this movie a second time if you have not seen this movie yet. But the one thing I wish they would have done is they didn't reference Darth Vader the whole movie. I mean, Snoke did once. He's like, I want you to be the next Vader. And that's all they said. But I think I would have liked to have explored Kylo Ren interacting with Anakin's Force Ghost. Because, I think that would have been cool. They hinted at him doing that in The Force Awakens when he spoke to Vader's helmet. And he said, Grandfather, please guide me again. And I would have liked to have seen more of that because, this is the first movie where Darth Vader's really not included in this is the first Star Wars movie where Darth Vader's really not included. But Kylo Ren still does a good job. He got to do, they orchestrate the karma of the Skywalker legacy through his character very well. All right. He gets to do what Vader didn't do. Vader always planned on killing the Emperor and ruling the galaxy with Luke, but he never got a chance to do it. But Kylo Ren, he was able to strike down Snoke so that he could replace him. And it was cool how they made it look like he was going to turn into a good guy all of a sudden. And then they plot twist, nope, he really just wants to take over. That Kylo Ren was waiting for a chance to kill Snoke this whole time. All right. Which is why I really hope we get flashbacks in Episode 9 showing how Kylo Ren was seduced by Snoke in the first place. Because I really think it would help shed light on his character. And a lot of people think Kylo Ren will never be redeemed in this saga. That he will never come back to the light. And we'll see. It's all up to J.J. Abrams now. But overall, I think Adam Driver did a good job as Kylo Ren. Great performance. Another great performance. Speaking of great performances, here is Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, returning as Luke Skywalker. And I think he did a great job. I think, You know, I'll tell you right now, The Last Jedi is going to be divisive among certain Star Wars fans, because there are going to be a group of Star Wars fans who hate The Last Jedi. And these Star Wars fans are purists who grew up on the original trilogy of A New Hope and Empire and Return of the Jedi. And they are going to disagree with choices made for the Luke Skywalker character. All right. Even Mark Hamill himself disagreed with what they did with his character in this movie. He still went along with it, but he disagreed with it. And of course, we are talking about the revelation that Luke Skywalker attempted to kill Kylo Ren in his sleep. All right, even if it was only for a moment that he was tempted to do that. A lot of Star Wars fans will say Luke Skywalker would never even pull his lightsaber out and be tempted to do that. Because it does. If Luke Skywalker is Luke Skywalker, he's not going to give up on his nephew. Even if the Force gave him a vision of the future, that his nephew was going to do all these horrible, evil things, he would still not resort to striking down his own nephew to prevent that from happening. Okay? But maybe he saw a future where he had to confront Kylo Ren and kill him in the future anyway. So he might as well do it now in the past before Kylo Ren murders all those people. So, but a lot of Star Wars fans are going to say, bullshit, Luke would never try to kill Kylo Ren, no matter what. But, so they're going to disagree with that. And there's going to be people that are going to disagree with the fact that Luke Skywalker became one with the Force at the end of this movie. All right. I was upset about it when I first saw it because I want more Luke. I want to see Luke train Rey. But Luke can still train Rey. He can return as a Force ghost to train her. It's very possible that that is what's going to happen. But the first time you see Luke's death scene, you don't know that it's a death scene. And then all of a sudden, he's gone. You're like, what? What the fuck just happened? Did he just die? I mean, he disappeared, but what? Luke's dead now? What? It's shocking, and you don't really know what's going on. But the second time you see it, and you see it coming, you know it's coming, you're like, wow, this is actually a really beautiful and powerful scene. When you know that it's his death scene ahead of time, and you go into it knowing it, you're like, wow, this is epic. He's watching the sun set, just like he saw his adventure started in A New Hope, watching the dual suns rise. Now he's about to become one with the Force, you know, just as the sun sets. It's like so poetic and it's epic, and it really hits, it blindsides you the first time you see it. So you can't really appreciate it until the second time you see it, which is why I say go see this movie a fucking second time. Right? Go see this movie a second time. Because I'm a fan of what Rian Johnson did with Luke Skywalker. I think he did a good job. I think he really did. There's a great scene where Luke Skywalker interacts with R2-D2, and it pulls at your heartstrings. You really get to see Luke be the, Luke, the Luke you remember, not just this crotchety old man who's been through hell, but you get to see him have a moment of levity with his old friend who happens to be a R2 unit. And it was great to see R2-D2 be able to do something in this movie, seeing as BB-8 steals all the thunder. But speaking of BB-8, BB-8 is not in this movie that much. BB-8 was a bona fide star of The Force Awakens, but in this movie he kind of takes a back seat, and he gets to shine in the movie later on when he takes control of an AT-ST and attacks. You'll see. We'll talk about it later. But Luke, the moral of the story with Luke is, I like what they did with Luke. I thought it was fun. I thought it was exciting. I thought it was compelling. And like Yoda said, failure is the best teacher sometimes. Or whatever he said. I don't know exactly what he said. Don't quote me on it. But that plays into a lot of what happens in this movie. A lot of what happens in this movie is we see our heroes fail. All of our heroes fail at one point or another in this movie, other than Rey. Rey's the only one that really doesn't fail at anything in this movie. But all the other characters, we see them fail, and how they deal with that failure and learn from that failure and grow from that failure. We have Luke that has to deal with the failure of what happened with Kylo Ren and his Jedi Academy, all right, and how that has affected him, all right, and that is why Yoda shows up to talk about failure. But so Luke Skywalker is great. I hope to see him in Episode 9. It's going to suck if he's not there. But speaking about it sucking that if they're not there in Episode 9, it's going to suck that Carrie Fisher is not going to be in Episode 9. And I was shocked in the movie when they blew her up. And I was like, holy shit, they just killed off Leia. But then it was so amazing. That made it so much better when you see her use the Force to pull herself toward the spaceship so she can get back into safety and save her own life. That was so epic. To finally see Princess Leia use the Force was cooler than shit. It brought a tear to my eye yet again. And multiple times, Carrie Fisher's performance in this movie brought a tear to my eye. And I'm glad that they didn't shoehorn her death into the movie. So I'm glad they didn't kill off her character on screen in some way. And because she's an integral part of this entire film. There's a lot of Princess Leia in this film, and that is why the film is dedicated to Carrie Fisher. All right. At the end of the day, the film is dedicated to Carrie Fisher. And, you know, I think rightfully so, because she does a great job in this movie with Princess Leia, and I have no idea how they're going to explain her absence in Part 9. Which makes me think there's going to be a time gap between Episode 8 and Episode 9. There's going to be a significant amount of time passes between those two movies. I predict at least a little bit of time. But you never know. It could pick up right where the last one left off. I just don't know how they're going to explain Princess Leia no longer being in this film. I don't know how they're going to do it. But kudos to Carrie Fisher. She does great in the film. And another guy that does great in the film is Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron. Like I said, he gets to expand his character in this film. They really take his character to the next level and prove that he is not Mr. Perfect. They defy the stereotype of the character who can do no wrong, the hero who does no wrong and he's always right. Well, they go against that stereotype in this movie because you get to see Poe Dameron be wrong, be dead wrong, and make some big mistakes. And hopefully, and you get to see him learn learn from his lessons. And so there's an entire subplot of him basically trying to run the show. And Leia's running the show, and then Holdo's running the show, and the whole time Poe is trying to run the show on his own when he doesn't have the authority to. All right? So you see him make some mistakes. And you see why he is better off being the best pilot in the galaxy and not trying to be the best strategist in the galaxy when it comes to doing what's needed to be done. But when I first saw the movie, I didn't know whether I should like this character of Holdo or not. And at first, you don't know whether to trust her. She might be a First Order spy. You don't know whether to trust her, and you don't know if she's right or wrong. But if you've seen the movie, not only is she right, not only is she on the side of good, and Poe was wrong, but she is actually a courageous hero. And after you see how she self-sacrifices herself in order to save everyone else in the resistance and help them get away, you grow to appreciate and respect her character and love her character. I really got to love this character when I saw the movie the second time. I was like, wow, I really like her character, and she did a great performance. It's so good to see her back in a big movie like this. You know, all Jurassic Park fans should know that she's in this film. So yeah, her character, it grew on me the second time. So go out and see this movie again, and you will respect characters like hers. So, but that's not it. A lot of reviewers, I've seen them review this movie, and they complain about Finn's story in this movie. So Finn, he has a great character arc in this movie, and people who are hating on his part of the movie are crackheads. They're haters. They don't get it. All right? In The Force Awakens, we're made to believe that Finn is a coward, that he's always trying to run away to escape danger, and that maybe he is a coward, that he's always scared, so he's always trying to run away. And in the beginning of this movie, we see him trying to do it again. He's trying to run away again to save his own ass. So, but in this film, throughout the journey that Finn takes in this film, he proves himself that he is not selfish, that he is not a coward, but that he is actually willing to sacrifice his entire life to save his friends and to save the resistance. All right? So we get to see that Finn is not a coward. He is not selfish. That Finn is a hero. And Rose, the new character of Rose, she knows this. She knows this from the beginning. All right, and I'll admit it, the first time I saw The Last Jedi, I did not like the character of Rose right off the bat. I felt like a lot of people feel that she was shoehorned into this movie, that they wanted to put in a new female character and, you know, shoehorn her into the plot and just, you know. So I thought, you know, at first you could feel like, oh, they're just, you know, putting this character in there for the sake of having her in there. But then throughout the film, she proves herself as a worthy character within this movie. I mean, her sister was killed helping the resistance, and she loves Finn. She respects him. She has a true love for Finn, and that shows. And that is why she risked her own life to save his. You know, even though he could have stopped their cannon from firing, but by sacrificing his own life, she saved him because she loves him. So when I went and saw the second time, The Last Jedi, the second time, I was like, wow, I really like Rose's character, and I'm glad that she becomes part of the story. When you see it the first time, you're like, why is she a part of this story? Like, how are they letting her be in on all this important shit? And all of a sudden, it's like she's a hero all of a sudden, and she's on. But she proves herself worthy of being in that position by the end of the film. And when you see it the second time, you will love her character and respect her character. And that is what I like about The Last Jedi. But speaking of that, last but not least, look who's in this film. Benicio del Toro. All right. He ends up being a character. We didn't know who he was going to be prior to this movie. But in order to shut down the First Order's tracking device that is tracking the Resistance ship, they need to get a splicer who is essentially a hacker in the Star Wars universe. And this guy is a hacker. And he helps them until they are caught. And then at first, he's this awesome character. You're like, okay, this is a great addition to the Star Wars universe. But then he kind of sells out, and then he betrays Rose and Finn, and then his character's just kind of out of the movie, and it's never resolved. So I am hoping that this is not the end of this character. I'm hoping in episode 9 that he is going to somehow come back into the picture and redeem himself. Because I do think that Benicio del Toro did a good job, and it's a good character, and it's a compelling character. And, you know, I don't want to see them just insert a character like this into the movie and then just have them exit the story like that. I'd like to see him come in and be redeemed at some point. But so, you know, those are the main characters. You know, like I said, R2-D2's in the movie, C-3PO's in the movie. And then there's the Porgs. Everybody complains about the Porgs. But there's this great scene, of course, where Chewbacca is eating a porg. He's about to eat a fried porg, and there's all these little porgs looking at him going, why are you eating us? Are you really going to eat us? And it's so good. You know, usually that cutesy stuff can turn you off as a Star Wars fan if it's not done right. But they did it right. They somehow made it palatable. Because there's not too much of it. There's not too much porg in there, but they throw it in there to make it at a palatable level. So all in all, I love Star Wars The Last Jedi. And I didn't realize that until I saw it a second time. The first time I saw it, I thought it was a flawed movie. I thought some of the writing was flawed. I thought that it had a lot of cool things that happened, but it could have been even better. But then the second time I saw it, I was like, you know what? I was mistaken. The writing isn't flawed. It's actually pretty brilliant. All right? Everything is brilliant in this movie. And if you can't recognize its brilliance, then it's not the movie's fault, okay? You got to go see this movie again. Give it a second chance if you're conflicted about it. And you might fall in love with this movie the second time you see it. Because I thought, it was such a shocking surprise when they killed Snoke with the lightsaber. And I'm like, oh, that's a shocking moment the first time you see it, but every time you see it after that, you're going to know it's coming. But the writing is so brilliant. When you see it the second time, you get to hear Snoke's lines right before he's about to be killed, and it's brilliant stuff. And it all ties together. Everything ties together in this movie. So we'll see what is going to happen in episode 9. J.J. Abrams has his work cut out for him. Personally, I hope that it turns out that Rey is Luke's daughter and that she's related to Kylo Ren. I would much rather see that play out than to have some kind of romance between Kylo Ren and Rey, where Kylo Ren is redeemed in the end. And we all live happily ever after, you know. Because Daisy Ridley has said she is not playing Rey after episode 9, which is something that Mark Hamill and, you know, Carrie Fisher, they said the same thing about returning to Star Wars, that they wouldn't return to Star Wars either, but they came back eventually. So after episode 9, Rian Johnson, the director of The Last Jedi, is going to make his own Star Wars trilogy that is apparently unrelated to the Skywalker saga in any way. That is just going to take place in the Star Wars universe and start a brand new story. Okay. But I would like to, after that trilogy, and it will take what? 9 years for that to come out? 8, 6 or 9 years, whatever, how many years it takes for that new trilogy to get out. I hope they come back to the character of Rey if she survives. I hope they bring her character back in an episode 10 at some point, because that would be cool. Because absence does make the heart grow fonder. So I would like to see an episode 10 someday. But I say, yeah, give it about 5 or 6 years before you make it, so that we grow. We want to see the next chapter of this story. But like Snoke said, Rey exists because Kylo Ren exists. Like she was born to balance his evil. Her good was born to balance his evil through the Force. So maybe to get rid of Kylo Ren, she's going to sacrifice herself. So maybe Rey and Kylo Ren are both going to die in the next movie, which would suck if everybody dies, but maybe that's why in Rogue One everybody dies, because they wanted to get us conditioned for that happening in this saga. So that would suck if everybody dies in the next movie. That would suck. Kylo Ren dies, Rey dies, Finn dies, Poe dies. Maybe they'll keep Finn around. They say he might have signed on for more movies. We'll see. But either way, the moral of the story is, upon second viewing, I have realized that The Last Jedi truly is a masterpiece. It's a lot better than I thought it was the first time I saw it. And the first time I saw it, it was powerful enough to bring me to tears, cry tears of joy, because it was so cool what I was seeing. All right? It was so poetic. It was so cool. It was so nostalgic. It was awesome. And even the second time, it made me cry tears of joy at certain moments of the movie. It got me emotional. But all in all, The Last Jedi is a good movie. It gets even better with repeat viewings. And it holds weight a lot more than The Force Awakens did. Okay? So I think you would agree with me. So there are a lot of haters out there, like I said, who are going to hate on this movie. And it's because they don't understand it. And that is what, people need to see the movie again. If you're a hater, give it a second chance. Give the movie a second chance, because it's worth it. It is worth it, right? Because this is a masterpiece. It's not the best Star Wars movie ever. Some people are saying it's the second coming of Christ, and it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it's the best Star Wars movie ever. And I can see how they would think that, but I still think it's definitely the best Star Wars movie since Return of the Jedi, without a doubt. So thank you so much for watching this video. In a couple weeks, I'm going to do a live spoiler discussion on my channel where people can, in the chat, can talk about this movie live with me. We can talk about it in greater detail there. But I'm going to wait till everybody gets a chance to see the movie. I want to give everybody the opportunity to see the movie. So hopefully you didn't ruin the movie for yourself. Shame on you. If you've watched this whole video and you didn't see the movie yet, shame on you. Because this movie was great. If you don't have any of the things spoiled for you, it is fucking awesome. So go see it again while it's still in theaters. And if you're watching this in the future, you missed out. This was a great time to be alive. It was so much fun. I walked in to see this movie 7 o'clock on Thursday night of the December 14th. And there was a dude dressed up as Darth Vader and a dude dressed up as a stormtrooper there, and they were menacing. I've never been to a comic convention before, so I've never seen that in person before. So to have a stormtrooper there with his rifle staring me down just a couple feet away from me, it was kind of frightening, I will admit. But hey, never underestimate the power of the Force. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope you enjoyed the Star Wars The Last Jedi. I am your friend forever, Evan Lefavor. And like I said, the one thing that disappointed me about this movie is that it didn't make me excited to see Episode 9 at all. Like, I'm intrigued to see what they come up with, and I wish them the best of luck in coming up with an epic conclusion to this entire saga. But this film feels like the conclusion to the saga. The Last Jedi feels like the conclusion of the entire story. And it definitely feels like the conclusion of the events set in motion in The Force Awakens. Like I said, there's still a few loose ends to tie up and a few things to be resolved. And hopefully the resistance will prevail and survive to save the galaxy. So anyway, go out there, see The Last Jedi again, buy it on Blu-ray when it comes out, and may the Force be with you always. I am your friend forever, Evan Lefavor, and I will see you next video. Until then, peace out, y'all. Bye-bye.